All right, guys, this is a little bit different video for me. I've never really shot one quite like this. Actually, I didn't even shoot this video. Jeffrey did. I want to share with you guys the magic of taxidermy. So many of us as hunters and fishermen and trappers, we get our trophy or have an amazing day and bring something to the taxidermist. We drop it off and then we pick it up 12 months later or whatever time amount later, and don't really see the steps involved. A lot of us wonder, why did it take so long? Why is it 12 months, 14 months, 16 months, whatever it takes? And this is the magic part of it. This is the art part of it. And this is, you're gonna really see why I chose Jeffrey for all of my taxidermy stuff at Peak Taxidermy. I've known him for years. I've hunted with him for a long time, and I just knew he was gonna be the best taxidermist that I know eventually. And he has far surpassed what I thought he was gonna be able to accomplish as a taxidermist. There is a ton of footage. He filmed almost all of it, and I can't show you guys all of it. I just can't upload a 8-hour movie or 12-hour movie to YouTube. So what I did is I broke it down into 4 parts, and I did a little bit of time-lapse stuff in between. I showed you most of the stuff, or you get the gist of it. So when he works on a left eyeball, I'm not going to show you all the work he did on the right eyeball. And if he works on the right ear, I'm not going to show you all the work he did on the left ear, because we all kind of learn what he does on one, he's going to do on the other. I am absolutely fascinated with this video. I could not believe how much I actually enjoyed watching it and how much I got into it as I went along and was editing and watching it for myself. Like, taxidermy is nothing I really ever want to do myself, but it's so interesting watching him bring a dead animal that's gone through the tanning process, the skinning process, everything else back to life and make it look real again. So I hope you guys enjoy this type of video. There's several parts to it, and let me know in the comments what you guys think. I'll put all Jeff's information down below. I strongly suggest you check Jeff out for your taxidermy stuff. I put my name behind it, and I don't do that for everybody. Haha, what is up, guys? Come on in. Come on in. This is one of my absolute favorite places. I just dropped off a deer. I'm out of the woods. I'm off the trap line. Look how cleaned up I am. I got my first shower in over 2 months. Look who's here.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
That's Mr. Jeff, the Moose Slayer. You guys might recognize him from way back in October.
Yep.
And that was this big bull over here.
That fella.
So we're at Peak Taxidermy, and this is a business that I support with all of my heart right here. I wish I could support it more.
You can.
But, all right.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be able to retire my day job just from your trap line, so.
So we got a lot of furs here. Jeff, it was funny the other day, I told him, hey, we're taking this awesome fur picture end of the year, and he's like, yeah, I got half your stuff here.
I know it's not a real fur picture at the end of the year. 20% of it's here.
But the cool thing is today, guys, and I want to show you, like, we're going to shoot a series, and I want to show you as we go, but I brought this deer head right here to Jeff. This has been in the works a little while. It's one of my favorite racks I've ever seen, and I've had this on my wall. The guy who taught my dad how to deer hunt in the 60s, he shot this in Maine. We're thinking either late 50s or as late as 1962. When Bob Sr. died, the head got passed down, and then they eventually gave it to my dad, and my dad took it, and it meant a lot to him. So he's given it to me. And I don't like the mount. It's what they'd call a neck mount.
Yeah, it's a neck mount. It's almost a shoulder mount. Like, it's a typical neck mount would be like right here. So it's almost a shoulder mount. And honestly, for as old as it is, it's not a bad mount, really. I mean, this guy knew what he was doing for sure.
Okay, cool. But we're gonna get it remounted, and this is something you guys can do if you had a taxidermist that messed up a mount. We've seen that before. Or if you got something old or something that means something to you, or animals get in it. What else happens, Jeff?
Just an old rack, you know. The mountain deer, obviously, back in the day wasn't a huge thing, so guys would just cut the skull plates off like these ones up here and hang them on the wall or in their barn, and we can buy a cape and bring them back to life that way too. So yeah, I got your cape right in here. Nice. Got the mount right here. That's going to be the form that's going on. Should look good up on that peak of your camp.
Sweet. And I'm really excited to get those antlers on this mount right here.
Yeah.
With a newer cape, and to me, like, I love art. You know, I've gone to art galleries and museums. You wouldn't expect that from a trapper. To me, the best art in the world is a deer head or a moose head or just really well done taxidermy. And I could sit in my chair and just look at a deer head for a half hour.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's so weird of me, but
yeah, I could do the same thing.
yeah. We never did count the points. We measured it 16-inch inside.
Inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13 scoreable probably.
He's possibly going to score that for us too, right?
Yeah, I'll run the tape.
I'm just
on it.
curious.
I'm not an official scorer or anything like that, but I get you within an inch or two
Sweet.
of what it is.
Yeah.
And it's definitely past the 60-day drying period.
This is a 60-year drying?
Yeah, 60 years.
60 years,
yeah,
actually.
We got to add 20% more onto it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Jeff does amazing work. If you follow his social medias or his Instagram, you could see for yourself he does amazing work and puts a lot of effort into it. And no one's going to work harder for you for your trophy or for your artwork. So, and you'll see. You'll actually, hopefully, we'll show them. We'll show them the Fisher and Martin and possibly Weasel from the trap line when they're done from Jeff. A couple subscribers bought Martin and Fisher that they're going to get mounted from my trap line that Jeff's going to mount and get to them. So we'll show you those at the end of the year too.
Yeah, yeah, and then I got Donnie's first Fisher and Martin in here to mount, and then Joe gave me a Fisher, a Martin, and a Weasel to mount. So maybe we can do something on those too.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. Yeah. So let me know if you guys are interested in this. I'm gonna shoot it no matter what. But I love to know, you know, like I love to hear like people get excited or interested or seeing like a different aspect, because not everybody shows like behind the scenes at a taxidermist or something like that. And it's always been fascinating to me. So we're gonna shoot some stuff. Jeff might shoot some stuff and get it over to me, and when I'm around, I'll shoot some stuff with Jeff, and I'm excited. So what do you think, buddy?
It's gonna be fun. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Have
awesome.
the pressure of a camera again.
Yeah, Jeff had an awesome, still has an awesome YouTube channel, but he's so busy doing this stuff, and this isn't even his full-time job yet. So he's still doing this stuff, and he's the man. So check him out, guys, and thanks for tuning in. And like I said, if you're interested in a fur or taxidermy, I'll put all the information in the description below, and promise you can't go wrong in the shop.
Okay, today is the day that we're going to start taking Joey's deer head apart and getting his form prepped and ready to mount. Just for reference, this isn't Joe's deer that he shot, but it's a close family friend who taught his dad how to hunt way back in the day. Very, very old mount, but we're going to put it on a new form for him. Great big mainframe 10-point with stickers and kickers, but we're going to start taking it apart and see what we actually have underneath. I'm very curious to see if this thing is going to have an entire skull, like its whole skull, European kind of mounted in here, or if it's actually going to be just a skull cap. If it's the whole entire skull, this is probably, could even be from the 40s, I'm not sure. Probably not the best thing going. You can tell it's all pretty dry and just breaking off. It feels wrong to be doing this, if I'm being honest with you. Not exactly sure what material this is. Probably something cancer causing. crazy. Look at all that in the ear. The form is just like a mache. It's just basically a plaster of Paris of some sort, some old pins holding stuff down. Not much detail in these old mounts. All right, I'm gonna start chipping away at this plaster of Paris or whatever this is, and see what I unearth, and I'll show you what we find. Okay, chipping away at some of this plaster, and it is not the entire skull in there. Don't know how well you guys can see, but it is just the skull plate. So there's probably a 50s deer. You know, old enough that they're still using a lot of rough material, a lot of like Bondo-y type stuff, but old enough that they're still using flatheads for everything, so this should be fun. It's got some shims in there to get it level. It's just weird to think about that someday someone could be doing this to one of my mounts because it's old technology, or you know, I mounted something that's someone's grandfather and now they want it remounted, or I don't know. It's just weird to be undoing somebody's work. And this guy was pretty good for the materials he had. He did a pretty good job. There's another one of you in there. Honestly, this whole form looks homemade. I don't think this is something you buy. I think this is something you created. I mean, obviously, sizes wasn't correct at all on any one of the measurements. I can't angle the camera down anymore, so this is kind of low in your visual, I know that, but it is what it is. Flatheads, man, guys back in the day used the crap out of some flatheads. Okay, the screws are out. Here comes the antlers. Well, there. Just like that. 50 years ago was the last time that this deer was probably off of that mount. Pretty dang impressive with what they had. He did a pretty dang good job. If the guy up in heaven is watching over, cringing, you did good, my man. It's a good looking deer for what you had for access to for materials. Okay, let's see what that looks like on the form. Wanted to show you this real quick too. What he's got in here mounted to this plaque is actually legitimately just a log. And then he took all that plaster and built up around it. Plaster and I don't know, whatever this stuff is. Some sort of a hay type material. But yeah, that's just a log. Ground it down to shape it at the front a little bit, but pretty neat. All right. It'll be something like that. That'll look good, huh? Gotta do some sanding. You're anybody that's starting out with taxidermy, basic thing you want to try to keep is angles. So as a general rule, not saying it happens like this way for every single deer, but that contour, that direction of your nose, your beams should kind of line up and do the same thing. So everything should kind of be in a line. Same thing with your ears. If your ears are going to be forward or if they're going to be back, they should kind of all fall just aesthetically more pleasing, as well as a little bit more natural, to all fall within the same, have that same kind of angle that that brim of that nose has. And then your burr to eye, as a general rule, a couple fingers worth should be able to touch the burr and be on the top of that eye. So I got to sand about a ½ inch off of that, but that's minor. That's going to be a good looking deer. Probably going to go back with his ear since his rack's so tight and I want that to be the focus. I'll probably kick both ears back, either following the beams or back, but we'll play with that when we get there. Form prep now. First thing I do is I get the mount level, both by his eyes this way, as well as this way. Obviously he's pointed down, but his back is level, as if it would be sitting on the wall. I use replacement noses. You don't have to. You can Dremel out, and it's a little bit more cost effective if you just take the time to Dremel these out. But I find that it's really hard for me and my OCD brain to get this side to match this side absolutely perfect, and I really struggle mentally with like being done with it. So I found that switching to a replacement nose is a lot better for my brain, and it makes the finish work on the backside way quicker. So there's a little bit of upfront time, but overall it really does good as far as like getting the process done. A lot of good replacement noses out there. There's some guys in Maine that make them. These are the Matuska ones, and I like these because they make a template that the noses fit in. They come in large and medium. On your smaller nose to eye deer, you need to get a different nose. These won't work for that, they're too wide, and that template just goes right over the top of that deer like that, and then you can trace it out. I try to get it level, just eyeing it this way. Make sure that distance is the same, and then I'll trace it, and then we'll cut it. Okay. Just like that. Now, can see we got those lines. And we can cut them. So to cut them, I just have an old Sawzall blade that's a little bit chewed up, a little bit used. And I just kind of follow those lines. Am I going to be in your way? I'll be in your way that way. So I just kind of follow that line. And you'll find that some form manufacturers, if you're going to do this, make the polyurethane foam that they use is much stiffer in certain mannequins than others. Like Joe Coombs, super soft. Mackenzie stuff's usually a little bit harder. This is Revolution Taxidermy mount. It's kind of right in the middle. And I don't cut all at once. I just kind of work my way down. And then at the end, I'll try to level it out. Go a little bit beyond. And same thing coming from this way. I always like to score my line first. I just feel like it helps keep me in line better. And even with that guide, you'll find that it's seldom ever perfect. You usually have to do a little tweaking. And that's okay. Just like that, pops right off. Now you got a nose to replace. And if you throw this one on, you can see it just overhangs just a little bit. And I usually always have that problem. It's just got a little bit of an overhang right here. So generally what I'll do is I'll just kind of come in here and cut a little groove out in the back so that that corner can sit in there a little bit better. And that just about makes it perfect. So this one needs a little bit more love. So I'll hit that with a rasp. Had a really nice 4-in-hand at one point, but I don't know where it went. So. A little bit more. A little bit more. There we go. That's going to be perfect. Yeah, perfect. So for this part, the actual gluing on of the nose, you can use a bunch of different things. For the adhesive, I like to use Bondo. And I typically do this at the end of the day, prepping forms and stuff, because I don't have great ventilation and it's still kind of cold out, so I can't open doors or whatever. So to not be in here and kill all my last few remaining brain cells, I do it at night. And you don't need much. You're just using it as a glue. I tilt the deer back so that when that nose sits on it, it can just sit there without sliding or falling forward. And then I tilt him back, and then again I double check his eyes and make sure he's level, so that when I'm looking at him from different angles, I'll get all around him and make sure that that nose isn't kicked off to a side or kicked, the whole thing's not off, you know, just, I don't know. I got a wicked OCD with this stuff. So I scratch up the surface of the nose and I scratch up underneath on all those surfaces so that there's no slippery spots. It's all scratched up. And again, you're going to end up pushing some of this out of the sides when you push this nose in anyway, so it doesn't take much. Push it back and down. And I'll take some of this crap off so I can see what we're working with. I need to come this way a little bit, like that. Hot glue, I tried hot glue in the past and I like it, but it's like, it's permanent and it's like you set it on and you're done instantly. This gives me some time to work it, and like I said, make sure all those little angles are right. I look right down the brim of that nose, make sure it lines right up with the top of that nose. Or the brim of the snout, I guess. I like to look from this angle, don't mind my workbench. Messy workbench. Try to make sure that's all lined up right. Just try to make sure it's as perfect as I can make it. I'm pretty happy with that. Level. Nostrils level. If you're having a hard time like telling if things are level, I always find that measuring from a certain point to another point is helpful, whether you're using an actual measurement or not, because sometimes once you get these on, it can be hard to tell. So I felt like this side needed to come down just a bit. I think I like that better. Yeah, I like that better. But see, you got time, right? It's not a rush. It's not like it's hot glued on and it needs to be done right now. And if you want a lot of time, just don't mix that much hardener in it. It'll harden eventually, but. Okay, that is all we're gonna do tonight. So we got the antlers off that head. I gotta sand those down. I probably won't film that, but it's basically just getting it so it sits right. So just a little update on the mount. Working on it again and set the antlers. Sarah had to steal her tripod back to do some photos for her composting business. So yeah, we got the antlers set, as you can tell. Good angle with them. All I used, basically the same way as the nose. Just bondoed the skull plate on. Once that hardened and kicked, I drilled holes, secured it, and then I'm using plaster of Paris. I've used a bunch of different stuff, paper mache, clays, two-part epoxy, stuff like that. But I'm gonna try plaster of Paris on it this time and see how I like working with that. because I want to try to actually mount the ears and get the ear butts sculpted and then cut off out of clay before I mount the deer instead of doing it while I'm mounting the deer. So just trying something different, always trying to improve and what have you. So we're gonna let this dry, and then next step's gonna be a little bit more form prep and then hide prep. Should mention too before I take this off, the reason I have plastic wrap on it is you just need some sort of a releasing agent on the skull plate itself if you're going to be doing stuff like this. So you could use WD-40, you could use like Pam dish spray, you could use a little bit of Windex, whatever. I already have this plastic wrap, so I just lightly wrap the head in it so that when I take it off, it comes off super easy. See, just like that, free. And then you can just pull this off like that. And I save that plastic and I use it for tucking into the nose as well, but you can see the Bondo on the bottom, fills it in, just makes it a little bit stronger. But yeah, that's that. And now there's no messing it up, which is nice. Just plop this on and it fits in perfect. I'm not gonna do that because it's still a little soft, but let's do some form prep. So all we're gonna do right now is we're gonna cut the slot where your tear ducts are gonna get tucked, and then we're gonna cut the slot for the lips. Now, typically I like to be at about a 45 angle, but when you get up towards this nose, this replacement nose, you kind of have to straighten it out so that you don't go up into that nose. When I'm doing my tear ducts, I like to be at kind of an angle as well. That's it for that one. When I'm at the corner of the mouth, I like to bore that out a little bit more because there's a lot of material. It's not just a top lip and a bottom lip going in, but you also got around this part of the lip going in. So I bore that out pretty good so that I have room to cut all that. And this is when you want to start transitioning and get a little bit flatter. Tear ducts are drilled out, mouth's drilled out. You want to use a pretty small drill bit for all of those, as small as you're comfortable with, because you want it to be pretty tight. A lot of guys will even just use a knife just to kind of break open that seal between the two lips, or the seal in the tear ducts, just because it helps hold it in from pulling out as it's drying. And then something I do, you don't have to do this, I like to add a little bit more face detail into the deer. So there's already grooves here and here, but I just take a form rougher, stout rougher. This is the slim one, and I'll just kind of groove those out a little bit more, and then I'll come back in with sandpaper, and it just kind of gives a little bit more like depth to the face, I think. I like how it looks, and part of taxidermy is doing a deer mount how you interpret a deer mount looking, and the people that go to you like how you interpret deer. So that's what we're gonna do next. You don't want to go crazy, because if you go too deep, you can potentially mess up your hair patterns. So I do that to get the majority of it broken up, and then I'll come in with some sandpaper. There's no like depth or anything that I'm following. It's just kind of what I can physically feel like will be good, and it's not much. You're not taking out a ton of material, but it really does help kind of bring in some detail to that face. And then here, I always try to like to go high, kind of create a V down into here. Try to stay off of this cheek muscle as much as you can. And then any hard edge you might have, just hit that, kind of round that over. That's basically it. That's all I do to the face. One more thing while we're on this side that I do. To prep my eyes to hold clay, again, we're gonna end up sanding and scraping up this whole form once I do my test fitting, but I like to have this facial feature stuff done first, just because I can, I guess. But the eyes, I'll just scratch those up. And then poke some holes. Hope I'm not in your way. And then around here, it's kind of hard to get a tool in there, so I'll just scratch those up too. In here a little bit if I need to. Some forms have much more detailed tear ducts than others. That just helps the glue, clays, all that. You know, when you go to push your eyes in, your clay will go into these little holes, and it just kind of helps secure it. So that is all we're going to do for form prep as of right now. Next step is going to be prepping the hide and test fitting it onto the mount to see if I have to take anything down or add to anything. And then once I like to do that first before I scratch this up, because it's kind of slippery as it is, so it helps fit it a little bit better. It is a new day. We are doing form prep for the final steps, and well, I shouldn't say final step. I do one more tomorrow, the main one. But we're doing test fitting today, and we're gonna prep the hide today to get mounted. So first thing we're gonna do, I actually handmade a stretching apparatus. So I'll sling the hide over this, I'll put this bar through it, and then I hang, I don't know, probably 30 pounds of sand from that to get the stretch back into the neck. You can also snap it and pull it, you know, not pull it apart, but snap it to stretch it, loosen up those fibers so you can get the girth back in to the neck that it should have. So that's what we're going to do now. Let that hang for 10-15 minutes, and then we're going to throw it on the hide and see if it fits. It should. The measurements are correct, so it should. Got to be careful. This one's got pretty good holes right here than at the neck that I'm gonna have to stitch up, but we just got to be careful of that. Okay, just like that. So you can see hide is on there. Sand, just kind of gravity. Pull some girth back into that neck. Usually I'll do this like today, right now. Still kind of cold. It's still somewhat fresh from being frozen. So I will do this now. It'll fit kind of tight, and then tomorrow, once it thaws a little bit more and it kind of warms up a little bit more, it actually will give a little bit more stretch. So even if it goes on a little bit too tight right now, it should be okay. Typically when you have big holes like that right there, once you sew that up, you could lose a little bit on your neck measurements, but where it's on the back of the neck, you're never going to see it anyway. So it's been about 5 minutes or so. Cape's pretty well stretched, so I like to put them up like this. It makes it a little bit easier to try to slide the cape on. So we'll see how this goes. Some tools of the trade for this. Same tool that you use for roughing, stout roughers. This one or the bigger one, doesn't really matter. There's one that's about twice as wide as this. And then this tool right here just kind of helps dig in. Just want to be careful with this one, because if you have really short-haired animals, you can kind of do a little bit of damage. This one you got to be careful, because if you don't have a good enough bite, you'll slip. So I generally just use this one. So what we're checking here, I'll flip the nostrils inside out. He's still kind of frozen, so he's not super stretched. He'll stretch better tomorrow. But if I can get him on like this, it'll get on tomorrow, no problem. Nothing's really thinned out yet either, so there's that to keep in mind. And I'll have glue tomorrow too, which is very helpful to get these on correct. So we are checking nose to eye. Make sure that's lining up where we want it. pretty good. Honestly, the neck, I don't worry about it too much. Generally, I always get just a little bit too big of a form, so it's always kind of a struggle for me to get necks on anyway. So I don't worry about like that fitting super crazy good right now. I'm more worried about the face. Because if this can go on this easy from here, once I have glue on it, it's going to go on really easy. Ears are right where they need to be. Rack. Where this isn't the same deer hide, these aren't going to always be perfect, but you just want to see what you can do with it. Make sure it's not like too crazy of that deer, which I don't think it's going to be. Yep, that'll fit good. Like I said, I'm not worried about this where it's still kind of bunched up. Once I have glue on and stretch it better tomorrow, I'll be able to, that'll slide right on. Won't be a problem. So now that I know that this is going to fit and that the nose and the eyes are right, it's time to prep the cape. We got some holes to fix. We got some thinning to do, some cutting off to do, all kinds of really kind of boring stuff, honestly. This is the boring part of it. All right, now probably one of my least favorite things to do, the sewing. Got a couple holes here. They were both caused by going too deep with the actual flushing machine. There's a couple other spots that luckily are going to be off that also went too deep, but they didn't go deep enough, so the hair's all coming out of it. This one just got cut open, so that's a pretty easy fix. Same with this one here, just needs to get trimmed up and cut and re-sewn back together. I usually like to wear a glove for grip when I'm doing this. And we just sew, which I know you guys can't see it that good, but that's as much of an angle as I can get. Usually do 4 or 5 stitches and then pull that incision tight. And I try to keep it consistent in my gapping, as well as keep it consistent with what side I pull from, so it pulls the same way, which I know doesn't make sense probably to a lot of you, but some of these you can tend to pop open when you're mounting, especially if you hit it with that tool. You just happen to catch a seam or whatever, and it can potentially pop open, so just got to be mindful of that. You can fix it. Even if that happens, you can still fix it. one hole done. And I'm just going to keep doing that. Any little hole that I can find, I'm going to look over the whole cape. I keep what I'm not working on in a bag just to get out of the air as much as possible so it doesn't dry out too much. But yeah, I'll just give it a good once over, try to get any holes, and then we'll move on to the face. We'll show you how we kind of thin that out a little bit. The holes, that big hole on the back, it's all repaired. Looks fantastic. This one I'm going to leave because I'm going to have to replace hair anyway. So I'm just gonna use hair to fill that, which I'll show you at some point in time. I should mention too that this is not obviously the original hide from this deer. We can purchase hides. So if this is something you guys are interested in, doing a mount for your grandfather or whatever, just have an old rat kicking around, we can buy hides, do this for you. Or if you shoot a deer or a buddy of yours shoots a deer and he doesn't want the cape, we can also use that cape to do this. You want to try to match it, right? So if you shot a 200 something pound deer, you don't want a 2-year-old deer's cape. You want a 3-year-old or older cape. Just trimming off some of these tag ends that will be in the way, and we don't need to show through the mount. It's always a little nerve-wracking buying a hide because you don't really know exactly what you're going to get. All right, so let's start with an eye. Turn it inside out. So basic concept of this is you need some skin in order to tuck it into the eye itself, but you don't need all the skin in the world. So what we want to do here is thin this right down as much as we possibly can. And this is all a feel thing. So at first you probably won't be great at it. I'm still getting better at it myself. But I like to thin the eyelid that will get tucked, and then from the eyelid back just a little bit. I want to take some of that chunk out of there. The thinner this is, the better it's going to mount up and the better it's going to dry. It's going to have less chance to, or not slip, but pull out on you. And you don't want to be tucking a bunch of material, so you have to do this. Basically going until I can kind of see the coloration of the wood through the skin. If you go through, it's not the end of the world. Right in front in that corner of the eye that we drilled out, this is that tear duct that's going to get tucked in. You want to try to get that as thin as possible. There's a little bit of cartilage on that end that you got to go through. I'm not worried about flushing all the way to the end of this because I'm going to cut the majority of that off anyway. I'm just getting that first 1/8 of an inch to a few 1/16 of an inch, and then making sure I'm getting nice and thin down around the actual skin around the eye too. Sometimes you'll have to go take your finger and work around that edge of the eyelid more, but they did a pretty good job here. So they have that opened up pretty good. And then I like to flip it back like this. So that's what you're left with, is all that skin on the outside of the eye. You don't need all of that. So I'm going to cut the majority of that off with scissors. So that's all I have left for skin around that. It's not much, it's just enough to tuck into that clay. We hold it. So that's an eye. I'll do a nose for you. Kind of the same thing. I like to turn it inside out. Slide it on there, and then we just get thinning. See, I put a hole right there. Not a big deal. It's gonna be okay. I used to freak out, like, oh no, but it's fine. Basically, taxidermy is fixing mistakes, whether it's caused by nature or a human hand. I primarily use the wildlife gallery for my tans here in the shop. I've never sent anything to these guys before, and they're not bad, but I'm used to how the wildlife gallery does things. I think they do a pretty dang good job myself, but they're not perfect either. You got the human element and everything, so the thinner you can get everything, the more those muscles on the forms are going to show. If you left the face super thick, or you left your nose pad super thick, you're not going to see all those lines and bumps and all that good stuff. And with this artificial nose, I don't need a lot of skin on that either. So I'm just double checking a couple spots that tend to run thicker. There's some cartilage in the nose, so there's a couple spots I'll usually hit twice. I'll get the bulk of it out of the way, and then I'll go back and just make little slices to clean it up. You always take stuff off, but you can't put it back. And just like that, that's a nostril. So I went from having all this extra skin here, like that, to having just enough that I can tuck in. And even that, probably I'll have to trim it once I'm actually putting it on the nose. So that's an eye, that's the nose. The mouth, we're gonna do the same thing. These little nodes that are on there, these little spiky guys. A lot of times if I wanna get a lip thinner, I'll cut those off from this side instead of fleshing from that side, as long as my lip feels like it's pretty well fleshed. I'm gonna do that, get the lips all done, and then I'll bring you guys back for an ear. Okay, everything is nice and thinned. Lips are nice and thinned. Nose nice and thinned. Got just enough material to tuck. Eyes are good. Now, we move on to the ears. So the inside part of the ear. So if this is the ear, this inside part has cartilage that you got to take off in order to use ear liners. And I also like to try to make sure everything's nice and open, so I'll stick my fingers up in the ear and I try to hit that seam and make sure that everything is pretty well split. You can do that, or you can get an ear turning tool right here, and you can shove that in the ear and work it around to try to separate those ears a little bit more if you feel like you need to. And I feel like they did a pretty good job. I'll hit it with a knife a little bit. Just try to make sure. You basically just want to make sure it's opened up and it's as big as it can be for your ear liner. If you feel a spot that feels like it needs it, you can also sometimes use your finger inside and push that seam open a little bit more, especially the tip of the ear. But you do have to be careful. Okay, so we got to score this cartilage. So the trick with this is you got to go deep enough that you're going through that cartilage, but not too deep that you're cutting up through the inside of that ear liner. And if you do, you can fix it. But
as little repairs as you have to do is obviously ideal. So I'll start it, and then I tend to like to fold it ear in half. Lost my line. And then this is just feel. If you don't take this out and you put an ear liner in, it'll still fit fine, but when this goes to dry, this cartilage will dry so slow, it will drum off of that ear liner every single time. So instead of being nice and tight up against that ear, it'll actually pop up off of it, and it'll sound like a drum. And sometimes it doesn't matter what you do, it still happens. But drumming's like a taxidermist's Achilles heel. We hate it. All right, so I got that line all across here. And then I just take some needle nose pliers. I start in the corner, kind of fold it open so I can see it. And I just try to get that lifted up so I can start pushing it and peeling it. I do that all the way across. If you do the Bondo method ear liners, you don't have to do this. That Bondo will stick to these good enough. But I'm not good enough at the Bondo ear liners to do them good enough, so I use ear liners. And there's mixed opinions on the Bondo and ear liner thing. That's kind of the thing with taxidermy. There's so many different ways to do everything that we're doing. There's so many different tools. Just do what you're comfortable with. Do what you feel like you understand. That's the biggest thing with me. Like, I learned on my own for the most part. Just taking certain things that make sense to me and applying it to my own stuff. So there's no one way to do any of this. Whatever way you do it is perfectly fine if that's how you're comfortable doing it. End of the day, try to make it look like the animal it actually was. So this is when you kind of got to be careful, because now we're going to start peeling this cartilage completely off the ear, and that inside part of the skin is very, very thin. So you don't want to go too fast. Get my gripper on. I always try to hold right up underneath it and then just peel a little bit. This is not where you want to put holes in anything, but if you do, just like I've said a million times already probably, you can fix it. Just go slow. It's tedious. It's painfully tedious. Feel like a tendon like this. That brown spot. I don't know how well you can see that brown spot right there. If that was still connected really good into the skin, that could rip that open. This isn't something you want to just grab. You could just grab it and literally do that, but you do not want to. The base of the ear, like once I do this part, you can be a little bit rougher with that once you get down closer to the ear butt. Up through here, like this part of the ear seems to be really thin. And if I put a hole in it, that's usually where it is. I don't know if it's because I'm rushing because I'm almost done it, or if it's actually thinner. Sometimes it comes off all in one piece. Sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so that's that side. Cartilage. It's pretty thick. And that's only on the inside of the ear. You don't have to do anything on the back of the ear. I'll cut off any little strings and strands like this that might lump up in the ear, but that is the basic concept of removing cartilage. And I'm only really using these pliers to just grab it enough to start the separation. And now for me, I use these Ohio Taxidermy Supply. They're 360. They're called 360 ear liners. They're supposed to clip into this ball clips into like a little metal or a little plastic bracket that you could put on the deer. I don't use it for that. I'll drill a hole in the form and I'll use this as that, because as their ears rotate, they don't really move. They just kind of rotate back, forward, etc. So I use that as like a pivot point. And then they're big enough on the inside here that I can take this, even with a little bit of cartilage on it, and get it down in there and shape it that way. So if you leave a little bit of cartilage down at the base of this, it's not a big deal. Now moose, whew, you want to talk about wearing your hands out. Those will take you a little bit to do. Those are thick. So now we are going to see how this fits. This deer's got pretty dang small ears. Midwest deer. So their ears are fairly small anyway compared to ours. Make sure you got the right side. And again, you want to be careful. The edges of these ears are currently sharp. The skin on that deer ear on the inside is very thin. So you don't want to horse it too much. Make sure you're not going to rip that open. The straighter you can go in, the easier it is to taxi that skin around. Going with a medium ear liner here, which looks like it's going to be just about perfect for that ear. And it is absolutely perfect. He's got a bunch of burrs in his ear. So there, just like that, you got an ear. We'll glue that in tomorrow. Got to get all your hair patterns right. Every hair line and seam and everything like that has a place. If this was really tight, let's say this was drummed out a little bit and it wouldn't sit in there nice, you could take away some of that ear liner and trim up that ear liner in order for that to fit good. But that's your main goal, is to make sure this fits good. If you got a big ripped ear, you can do the same thing. You can cut that notch out where the ripped ear is, but yeah. That looks pretty good. Good looking ear. All right, so I think that this is probably where we should stop this video. I'm not sure exactly how Joe wants to do this, if he's going to do it all at once, but I'm going to assume that this has been fairly long. Obviously, if I was just to come out here and do this, it's not going to take nearly as long as this video is. Stopping and talking and explaining things and having to actually think about what I'm doing takes a little bit longer. So I'm going to get this second ear done, and then I'm going to wrap this deer back up, put him back in the bag, airtight, so that he can't get any outside air to him. Leave him out for tonight, and then tomorrow morning we'll come back in. Well, I guess next video for you guys, we'll come back in, stretch the hide again, rough up the form, get some eyes and the ears glued in, and we'll start the actual mounting, which is probably what you guys have been waiting for anyway. So hope you like it, and we will see you tomorrow morning.